talk about Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. Their 2024 season is over with. Unfortunately, they will not make the NFL playoffs, and that's okay. They finished their second year with Bryce Young being 5-12. This was an improvement year compared to last season underneath Frank Reich and Thomas Brown coming in and being the main offensive play caller. This season, they look better on the offensive end. And I want to start off with Bryce Young. The kid went through hell and back this year. Myself in the past, I've come out and said that him and CJ were 1A and 1B in the NFL draft. Earlier this year, I was very upset with the national media because they came out and they made it seem like the Carolina Panthers failed Bryce Young when he got benched in favor of Andy Dalton. For context here, the first 2 games of this season, he did not play very well. His first pass of the season went for an interception against the New Orleans Saints. And against the Los Angeles Chargers, he also looked terrible. So they benched him in favor of Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton went out there and he won a game against the Las Vegas Raiders. And at that point, there was a lot of question marks. Should they keep Bryce Young? Should they move on from Bryce Young? If they end up with a top pick, should they go with a different quarterback? But Dave Canales came out and he stuck to his word. He said he wasn't going to make a drastic decision. Andy Dalton will be the starting quarterback for the time, for the foreseeable future. But if something was to change, they would go with Bryce Young. Unfortunately for Andy Dalton, he would get into a car accident. He hurt his thumb. They will go back to Bryce Young. And it did take a couple weeks. Not every single game this season was pretty, but Bryce Young went 4-6 in 10 games this season, 15 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions in that 10-game window, 223 passing yards, 223 rushing yards, and 5 rushing touchdowns for 2,104 passing yards. He looked like a franchise quarterback against elite level competition at times. Did he have bad games still? Yes, he did. But he's in his second year in the NFL, and he is still figuring out the playbook with Dave Canales. This was the best case scenario from the Carolina Panthers. And I'm going to come on here. I'm going to give Bryce Young a lot of credit. He could have went out there. He could have tucked his tail in between his legs. He could have walked away. He could have quit on the team. He didn't do that. That's what Kenny Pickett did with the Steelers. I look at Bryce Young. He was able to go out there and regain his confidence. He lost his confidence early in the year, especially against the Los Angeles Chargers. He looked distraught at one of those interceptions. He looked like he was about to cry. And that's not me trying to make fun of him. He really looked like he was about to break down on the field. But he came back a couple weeks later. He had a passing touchdown against the Denver Broncos on the first drive. He had confidence. You didn't see Bryce Young go out there and dance after rushing for touchdowns last season with Frank Reich. He was back to where he was playing at the same level when he was with Alabama. You saw some of those moments last season, but he was the most sacked and most pressured quarterback in the NFL. This season, they brought in 2 very good offensive guards, Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt. Ickey looked better at the left tackle position. Taylor Moton is still holding things down the right tackle position. They gave him more time inside the pocket. And they were able to work off of play action because of a dominant run game with Chuba Hubbard. And Jonathan Brooks, we got to see him for a couple of snaps this year. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL in back-to-back years. He may miss majority of next season or even all of next season. But I think that Jonathan Brooks, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a very good running back. But you have Chuba Hubbard. You have something with Bryce Young. For the first time in a very long time, the Carolina Panthers, there's optimism. There is true optimism. And I'm not just trying to come on here and say what I've said in the past. Bryce Young at the time was an unproven rookie, but they were treading to the right direction. This has been the Carolina Panthers franchise. They have been starving for a franchise quarterback. We've seen quarterbacks since Cam Newton. We've seen guys like Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. PJ Walker started games. None of those guys came in and they were franchise quarterbacks for the Panthers. So they went up there and they made a major trade with the Chicago Bears to bring in Bryce Young. I hope that this works out because he still has a long ways to go. But when you look at Bryce Young, he was not the reason why this team lost majority of their games this year. Their defense was just bad. And Xavier Legette had key drops. I believe his best performance this season was against the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Kansas City Chiefs, they have a solid defense. They lost that matchup 30-27. Bryce Young was 21-35, 263 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. And Xavier Legette had a massive drop in that matchup. And Xavier Legette, very good player. You're going to hear me say that a lot about him in this video, that he dropped a pass here. He wasn't able to capitalize on this moment. It's not me saying that he's a bad player. He's young. He's a rookie. He's going to figure it out. We've seen this before with players in the past. Some of the best wide receivers right now, they struggle to catch the football early on or even in the preseason. And now you look at them, they're top wide receivers for their teams. So don't give up on Xavier Legette just yet. But that Kansas City Chiefs game, that really made me turn my head. And that really made me look at Bryce Young in a different way and saying, okay, this is Alabama Bryce Young. This kid's able to go out there. He is willing and dealing right now. He's getting the football to where it needs to be because of his anticipation and his accuracy. And Bryce Young showed the ability to move outside the pocket. He did not run this much at Alabama. We've seen him run a lot in his first 2 years in the NFL. Last year, under bad circumstances. This season, because he was extending the play, pushing guys down the field, or just taking off for rushing touchdowns. Against the Philadelphia Eagles, yet another strong performance by Bryce Young. They win that matchup, well, potentially win that matchup if Xavier Legette catches that football, but he didn't. Against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first matchup, because the second matchup was a blowout. In that first matchup, Eddie Pinheiro missed field goals in that game. Chuba Hubbard fumbled the football in overtime. And I don't even have those many negative things to say about Chuba Hubbard in that moment, because if Eddie goes out there and he makes his field goals, you win that matchup. And I know coulda, shoulda, woulda doesn't win you games in this league. But those moments right there, they're crucial moments. And it all helped build up to what they have done within the last couple weeks against the Arizona Cardinals in overtime. Bryce Young looked very good that entire day. Bryce Young against the Arizona Cardinals, 17-26, 158 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. You may say 158 passing yards. Big whoop. He didn't go out there and have 300. That's okay. Not every single game is going to go for 300 to 350 passing yards. Can you be efficient? And can you put your team ahead of schedule? And that's what Bryce Young did. And they ran the football with Chuba Hubbard, game-winning touchdown in overtime. They closed out the game because they've learned from the past. They learned from those heartbreakers against the Kansas City Chiefs. They learned from the heartbreakers against the Philadelphia Eagles. You don't put yourself in those close situations. You take care of business early in the game. And that's what they did against the Arizona Cardinals. They let the Cardinals come back into the game, but they always kept their foot in their neck, especially late in the matchup. And today against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons, they're still playing for a playoff spot. They went out there and they had a very good defensive effort against Jaden Daniels the week before. And Jaden Daniels had a very good game against them. But that defense, they stood in there the entire game. Dave Canales came out and he outcoached Raheem Morris. They win this matchup 44-38. And Bryce Young was 25-34, 251 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. 0 sacks allowed, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns. That is what you want to see from your franchise quarterback. Can he overcome adversity, and can he put you ahead of schedule? And that's what Bryce Young did. Even in the losses, he looked good. Against the Dallas Cowboys, yes, he looked terrible. The entire offensive line looked terrible, but he did the best that he could. And he was able to go out there and make some nice plays here and there. They're going to still be going through this ugly duckling phase. I know if you're a Panthers fan, it would be nice to say, well, we defeated the Kansas City Chiefs. We defeated the Philadelphia Eagles. That would be great. But they're building a culture right now. They have been dealt with bad coaches over the last few years since Ron Rivera. Since Ron Rivera, they have not had a very good head coach. Dave Canales, he seems like he's going to be a very good head coach moving forward. You've had Matt Rule, who was a terrible head coach in this league. The man had Joe Brady as an offensive coordinator, used him as a scapegoat. They fired him. You brought in Frank Reich with that all-star coaching staff. That didn't work out. And I look at the Panthers now. You go out there, you bring in Dave Canales, who's the former offensive coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now you're starting to see the work that he did with Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield. Even though Bryce Young is a very good player right now, give Dave Canales a lot of credit for making everything easier on him by running the football and sticking to what he said he was going to do earlier in the offseason, by getting those offensive linemen, by feeding Chuba Hubbard even more. Chuba Hubbard has become one of the best running backs in the NFL. He's going to only get better. Miles Sanders has not been a good running back with this team, in this organization. But I will say this, against the Atlanta Falcons, he ran hard today. I will give him his credit. But the future of this team in that backfield is going to be Bryce Young, Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks, and just stick with Bryce Young. He can't go out there and have 0 passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but he's still learning. But the return on investment right now on the offensive end is starting to hit. Xavier Legette, you selected him in the first round. It's a lot of room to grow, but you see the potential there. JT Sanders at the tight end position. You have him, you have Tommy Tremble. Two very good and solid tight ends at times this year. And JT Sanders hasn't been the same player that he was before he hurt his neck against the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think next season, he's going to be a top receiving tight end target on a weekly basis. Besides Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen, this is his last year of his deal. It would be great to see him still stay with the Carolina Panthers. I would love to see this. I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe he wants to go to a team that's a Super Bowl contender. He deserves to. But he's been an awesome wide receiver with the Carolina Panthers and helping the development with Bryce Young. He's been their best wide receiver in terms of getting open, drawing penalties, and catching the football and putting the guys ahead of the sticks. This has been a very good experiment so far with Adam Thielen. He's older now. He's not the same wide receiver he was in Minnesota Vikings. But against the Philadelphia Eagles, against the Kansas City Chiefs, he came out and he showed out. And you also have to take this into account. He hurt his hamstring earlier this year against the Raiders in that matchup. And he hurt his hamstring by catching the touchdown. And Adam Thielen had over 1,000 receiving yards last year. Jalen Coker, undrafted free agent. The kid looked so good. Gave you his all. Against the Dallas Cowboys, he was the only shining light on the offensive end. He plays from whistle to whistle. From the beginning of the game to the end of the game, whether you're getting blown out by 30, whether it's a close game, Jalen Coker is a very good player. And it's one of those stories that you look at, undrafted free agent. How did this kid go undrafted? How did he slip to the Carolina Panthers? How did they let him become a Carolina Panther? How did no one else see his talent? Shout out to the general manager. Shout out to the coaching staff. I've had a lot of negative things to say about David Tepper, throwing drinks on fans, going out there and just being a negative owner, getting upset with small businesses because they have the Carolina Panthers suck. He's done all those things. This season, he was quiet as a church mouse. He stayed out of business. Now, when the Carolina Panthers go out there and when they start to win games and they're able to go out there and they're able to have success, you will see David Tepper, again. Up there in the press box, you will see him because he is going to try to be the face of Carolina Panthers. But as long as he stays out of team day-to-day business, the Panthers will be fine. You let Dan Morgan go out there. You let him do his thing as a general manager because you had Scott Fitterer for so many years. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. You should have traded Burns to those 2 first-round picks to the Rams, but you didn't. You were stockpiling talent when you're not ready to win at that point in time. So when I look at Dan Morgan, I think he's going to be a good general manager moving forward. When I look at this offense, bring in another wide receiver, try to re-sign Adam Thielen to a 1-year deal, we'll see. But their offense, they have a good nucleus there with Bryce Young. Just let him develop as he goes into year number 3. Because that's a pivotal year for any young quarterback. They have to exercise his 5th-year option. So when you go out there and you look at Bryce Young, if he continues to play like this and he continues to play better, you exercise that 5th-year option, you should be able to be in contention to win this division. Now, this division is going to be tough. I know we look at this division right now and we say this division is weak as hell. When I look at the quarterbacks, Michael Penix Jr., he may be a very good quarterback long-term with the Falcons. You look at Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right now, that's the team to beat in this division. And you're just a couple plays away, a couple miscues away from defeating that team. And the New Orleans Saints, we'll see what they do in their quarterback situation with Derek Carr. Like I said, beginning of the season, right before the season started, I didn't have that much faith in the New Orleans Saints because of their coaching staff. So I feel like the Carolina Panthers will be okay in this division. There's still a lot of work to be done. And speaking of work being done, this defense, go all in on defense. Abdul Carter should be the 1st-round pick. For the ones that don't know, he's a very good edge rusher in college. That draft video may be coming out sooner than later. But when I look at Abdul Carter, you put him in with Derek Brown, there you go. Because you need edge rushing help. DJ Wonnum and Jadeveon Clowney, they're nice every now and then. On a consistent basis, they're not good pass rushers to have. More so with DJ Wonnum, I think there's more to his game than Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney's not a bad player. I just don't see a top edge rusher in this league. And he's never been a top edge rusher in the NFL in terms of getting to the quarterback. Yes, he had 9.5 sacks last season with the Baltimore Ravens, but that was a loaded defense. But he also played alongside J.J. Watt. And he wasn't able to go out there and capitalize on those opportunities. And that's when J.J. Watt was at his best. So now look at the Panthers. This defense, you need to get some edge rushers, put pressure on the quarterback. Derek Brown missed majority of this season dealing with a torn meniscus. That's a very good football player, one of the best run stoppers in the NFL. He's going to give you his all. That's a very good player. You could go Mason Graham, but I don't think that the Carolina Panthers want to have two big defensive tackles up top, and you still can't get pressure off the edge. Now, you look at it from that philosophy, and Mason Graham is the player from Michigan, very good defensive tackle. You have him and Derek Brown. You can free up your edge rushers, and you definitely will not be able to run the football on this Panthers team. And their rushing defense was by far the worst in the NFL. Every running back had their way with the Carolina Panthers, from Rico Dowdle with the Dallas Cowboys, from Bijan Robinson today, even James Conner. At times, they slowed him down, but you'll see opportunities there. They were able to find a lot of holes in this defense. That can't be the case. This is the worst this defense has looked in the last 5 years. I don't know if Coach EJ will be back or not. This is the defensive coordinator. Maybe they'll bring him back. But the rushing defense was a problem last season. Now, they had a top defense last year because you had more defensive pieces, but they were 26 in rushing defense. The philosophy is broken right now. You need to have the players there, but the philosophy needs to be better from Coach EJ or your next defensive coordinator. I think it's best to just move on from Coach EJ and let him find a place somewhere else and just basically revamp this entire defense with personnel and coaching. J.C. Horn, still one of the best corners to have in this league. Xavier Woods, a very good playmaking safety. Michael Jackson is not a true number 2 cornerback in the league. He's a very good depth piece. You need to find another cornerback. They traded Dante Jackson to the Steelers to bring in Deontay Johnson. That's at that point in time, they traded Deontay Johnson to the Ravens, which was a great move, by the way, because he was rarely able to find playing time with the Ravens. And when he did, he was unhappy. But that was a great move to move off of him. And the reason why they traded Deontay Johnson, they weren't in contention to do anything. This was a Panthers team that thought that they could go out there and make the NFL playoffs this season. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And you know what? It happens. But you go out there, you fix this defense. You get you another cornerback. You bring in some more defensive linemen. The linebacking spot is going to be very interesting because Trayvon Wallace did not look good. But at the same time, Trayvon Wallace was not supposed to be a starting linebacker. This was supposed to be Shaq Thompson. This is back-to-back years now. Last season, he had a teammate slam a Saints player on his leg, completely fractures his leg. This year, early in the year, tears his Achilles. I don't know what's next for Shaq Thompson. Shaq Thompson has been a solid linebacker, but this organization has dealt with interior linebacking problems since Luke Kuechly retired due to concussions. They haven't found that true linebacker since then. They need to bring in a solid interior linebacker. Josie Jewell, he's solid. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and be a major name. And you don't really just need major names to go out there and just fix your entire defense. You need to have an actual scheme to where players can have gap responsibilities and they can just stop the run. Because stopping the run will make everything else so easier for the Carolina Panthers and getting more pass rushers up front. You shouldn't have to blitz J.C. Horn off the right side to get sacks. That should be Jadeveon Clowney and DJ Wonnum. Also, majority of this season, your pass rushers were injured. Your defense dealt with injuries. Even when they were fully healthy, they still didn't look good on the defensive end. So go out there and bring in more defensive talent. A'Shawn Robinson, I do want to say shout out to him. 5.5 sacks this year, 1 forced fumble. He's not going to ever go out there and get double-digit sacks in a season, but that's okay. He showed a lot of effort. Even when some defensive players didn't show the effort, he did. I think that you bring him back. Let him come back on the team. He's a veteran. He knows his plays. He's seen so many different offensive looks in terms of motion and blowing up plays. He's a very good player. I think you bring back DJ Wonnum. I understand that he missed portions of this season dealing with an injury. I like him as a pass rusher. He had 8.5 sacks last season for a reason. You can move off of Jadeveon Clowney, go younger there, bring in someone like Abdul Carter, bring you in a defensive tackle, and see what you have with your team. But the sky could be the limit with Bryce Young in this offense. It's going to take some time for this defense to actually get better. And we've seen this in the past with the Carolina Panthers. I remember that season, if I'm not mistaken, they had Teddy Bridgewater as the starting quarterback for that year, and their defense was not that good. That's when they had Jeremy Chinn and crew. And it still took some time for the defense to head into the right direction. But over the last few years, the defense did get better. But at the same time, their offense was not able to get placed into the right direction because of bad offensive line play and bad quarterback play. It's really crazy to see the Carolina Panthers have Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold on the team at the same time. Both of those guys right now are playing like franchise quarterbacks. But to give Bryce his respect, He'll be in that category if he continues to head in this direction. So I'm not worried about him. This offensive line, as long as they're fully healthy, they're going to be okay. Speaking of this offensive line, Austin Corbett, I believe that he has played his last snap with the Carolina Panthers. They may move on from him. Extend Icky at the left tackle position. And you look at this, 7 one-score games this season. And they won 3 out of those 7. And 2 of those games came late this season. In the last few weeks, they've learned from their mistakes. And they also defeated the New Orleans Saints, and they got Dennis Allen fired. So when you look at the top moments this season for the Carolina Panthers, I'll say the game against the Kansas City Chiefs for Bryce Young, the overtime win against the Arizona Cardinals, defeating the Atlanta Falcons and eliminating them from playoff contention, even though the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went out there and won their game. They took care of business. I'll say the touchdown run against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first encounter, to where Bryce Young actually started to show it full confidence, and the whole team started dancing on the sideline, and Dave Canales is just looking off to the side and he started smiling. Those type of moments. They're goofy moments. You could say those are cringeworthy moments. If you played any type of team sport, especially this sport, you bond and you grow. They've given him confidence, and he's gained his confidence back. This offseason, work with Bryce Young. You get another year with him and Dave Canales, and hopefully this is what the Carolina Panthers need to be a top team in this division. I've been covering this team for some time. The last time that the Carolina Panthers had this much fun on the field was when they had Cam Newton. And Cam Newton was dabbing and doing all of that stuff. That was a very long time ago. And Bryce Young, he doesn't have to be Cam Newton. He doesn't have to go out there and make all the rah-rah speeches and do the Superman. He just has to be the best Bryce Young that he can be on the field and keep these guys going. And one more thing I want to speak on, even when the team was down big in the games against the Dallas Cowboys, you saw him keep those guys together on the roster, on the sideline, and they stuck with Bryce Young. And I'll say this about their locker room culture. They have a pretty dope culture with Dave Canales. I will say that, because even when he got benched, you saw Deontay Johnson, who was no longer with this team. He was still sticking up for Bryce Young. That's what good teammates do. They could have easily went out there and said, you know what, man, he'll figure it out. Right now we have Andy Dalton as our guy. Deontay Johnson stuck up for the man. Same with Xavier Legette, JT Sanders, and Chuba Hubbard. They've always been in his corner. And little moments like that behind the scenes that the national media don't speak of, those are big building block moments for the Carolina Panthers. But work on this defense, fix this defense, make that the main priority. And I will say this, Dan Morgan did a phenomenal job of fixing his offensive line. So he may be able to go out there and fix his defense in one season. We'll see. With all that being said, I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. How would you grade the Carolina Panthers season in 2024 in year number 2 with Bryce Young? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.